Bingo. I got action.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Father David Kelly, and I am the Director of Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation. And let me begin this evening by welcoming you and thanking you for joining us, and hopefully the next 2 Mondays in which we will be part of what is called a conversation that matters. I want to acknowledge, too, before we begin, that today we celebrate the people who first called this land home. We remember the struggles and the tragedies they endured. We honor their place in the contributions to the shared story of America. Once we began to talk about our fall fundraiser and COVID, we recognized that we weren't going to be able to gather in person. So we decided to invite you instead to a series called Conversations That Matter. Conversations that look at some of the underlying issues and the violence, incarceration, and trauma. But we don't want to just talk about the problems. We also want to talk about the possibilities as well. What can we do together to make a real difference? Tonight, you'll hear from 4 individuals who are personally impacted by incarceration, incarcerated for decades. They will speak from their experience. When we speak of reentry, we need to listen to those who truly know the issues and what might make a difference. What was it like to come home after 25 years in prison? What can be done to support the transition from prison to community? And then next Monday, we'll hear from mothers and grandmothers who have lost a child to homicide or incarceration. They too are the experts in helping us understand how we can accompany them in their grief and also how to stop the violence. What was their experience? What needs to happen to ensure that other families don't suffer this same tragedy? Then in 2 Mondays from now, October 25th, we'll hear from some of our youth, young people, who will help us to understand what it's like to grow up in a neighborhood that has been touched by violence, incarceration, and trauma. The voices of our youth are critical in this conversation. But we don't want to just talk about what's wrong, although we'll touch on that, but what is possible? What can we do together? We invite you also to engage with us tonight by using the chat and asking questions in the Q&A section of your Zoom. We also invite you to a continued conversation by coming here individually or in small groups. We're hoping that tonight is just the beginning. Tonight is a jumping off point of a deeper relationship and hopefully a collaboration that we hope will lead to transformation. A conversation that matters was sparked by a poem by Margaret Wheatley that I'd like to share with you this evening. It's called Turning to One Another. There is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Ask what's possible, not what's wrong. Keep asking. Notice what you care about. Assume that many others share your dreams. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Talk to people you know. Talk to people you don't know. Talk to people you never talked to. Be intrigued by the differences you hear. Expect to be surprised. Treasure curiosity over certainty. Invite in everybody who cares to work on what's possible. Acknowledge that everyone is an expert about something. Know that creative solutions come from new connections. Remember, you don't fear people whose story you know. Real listening always brings people closer together. Trust that meaningful conversations can change the world. Rely on human goodness. Stay together. Our first panel will be moderated by Jojo Mapp, so I'll let him take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Kelly. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all taking the time out to begin this conversation that's going to be a series of conversations. And it doesn't stop here. And we can continue and find ways and work together to come up with possibilities. So I thank you all for being here. Tonight, my name is Joseph Mapp. I'm the Communities Partner in 4Ps Program Manager and Director of Reentry here at Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation. I'm thankful to have you all here because even in this presence, I recognize I still can learn and ride the wisdom of the room. So tonight, I want to begin with asking each one of you all, and I will start with Adolfo, to tell a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself and tell who you are.
Well, my name is Adolfo Davis. I was born in Chicago, but raised in the Illinois Department of Correction. I was sentenced to life at 15. I was incarcerated at the age of 14, but sentenced to life at 16. I spent 29 years in prison, and I was released 15 months ago. I'm the I'm the mentor coordinator here at Precious Blood, and I've been knowing Father Kelly, Dave Kelly, for 30 years. He's been my mentor for 30 years, and it was only right that I landed here. So that's a little bit about myself right now.
Thank you, Adolfo. Renaldo.
Yeah, my name is Ronaldo Hudson, and I'm a directly impacted citizen, served 37 years in the Illinois Department of Correction. I actually just celebrated my first year home, and in fact, it was this ministry, Precious Blood, that gave me my first bed and a set of keys, and I continually am humbled by that reality and the hospitality. I'm also the director of education for the Illinois Prison Project, which is the organization that brought me home, and I'm just so humbled to work with that organization and that we're working daily to be partners with Precious Blood Ministry. So, yeah.
Thank you. CC.
So I'm Celia Colon. I am a mother. I'm a humble community servant. I am somebody also who is justice impacted. I spent my youth in prison. I did a 15-year bit at the age of 18. I've been home for 20 years now. I started my own non-for-profit that was always a ministry. It's called God, because I give everything back to God, giving others dreams. And I unapologetically serve women coming home from prisons, jails, and treatment centers.
Marlon.
Good evening. My name is Marlon Chamberlain, and I am the campaign manager for the Fully Free campaign. In 2002, I was sentenced to a 20-year federal prison sentence. And as a result of the Fair Sentencing Act, a federal piece of legislation that reduced the ratio between crack and cocaine, I was released from prison on May 29th of 2012 after serving 10.5 years in federal prison. And I'm excited to be here. In fact, one of the first places that really had sort of a major influence on me and why I got involved in this work was I was a part of a restorative justice circle here at Precious Blood, which really opened my eyes to restorative justice work and the opportunities that we have to really rebuild communities through that work.
Thank you. I thank all of you for coming, and I appreciate it. And I want to thank you all for being my friends and my partners in this work. I appreciate it. If I fail to mention, I'm also system impacted. I've served 26 years, 5 months and 26 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. So like you all, I wear the pains of what it means to be incarcerated. But just like you all, I want to move beyond my guilt and shame of what it was that caused me to become incarcerated. And I want to give greatly to the communities that I'm a part of, crossing communities without boundaries. So speaking of that, and I know we have shared stories, but from different vantage points. So I would like to take this time, and this time I will start with Marlon. I will ask you, what was your experience like returning home from prison, and what barriers do you believe still exist today?
So my experience was interesting for a couple reasons. The first one, prior to me going into prison, I had filed a lawsuit, didn't even remember like why I filed the lawsuit. But while I was still in the halfway house, I was given a lump sum of money. And so that gave me an opportunity to breathe. And so instead of having to like find employment immediately, I was able to go back to school. And then I also connected with some folks that I was incarcerated with who gave me an opportunity to start my own painting company. And so I was able to start a business. But what I remember is watching like the emotions of people who were excited about being home from prison. And then I would see that the same people frustrated, and I could see the anxiety of not being able to find employment and housing and all of the things that we need as we transition from incarceration back into the community. And so for me, my experience wasn't bad, but just seeing like how it impacted those around me really impacted me. And I'm also thankful because I had a support network with my family and friends that were able to help me as I transition. But what I would say, some of the barriers that I still see, my son just finished up his first grade year in school, and his teachers asked me to chaperone him and his classmates on a trip to a bowling alley. And I was denied this opportunity because of a 20-year-old conviction. And I had to explain to my 7-year-old son that I couldn't participate as a chaperone because I had an old drug conviction, which really he didn't understand. And so there are hundreds of barriers that impact people after incarceration that people don't realize until you're trying to find housing, or if you want to chaperone your son on a school trip.
Thank you. And what I find bothersome is there are a lot of barriers for men, but even more so for women. And Celia, can you speak to some of the barriers that women face and some of your experience in transitioning out?
So my experience coming home, you know, it was a very dark space for me. It was like the space of the unknown. I didn't have housing. I came home and I was given housing for a week. And then basically I was couch surfing from cousin to cousin, friend to friend. You know, there's very little to no supportive, I would say gender responsive transitional housing for women. When I came home in 2000, there was less than 5. Here we are, 2021, there's still less than 5. So that gap that is constantly ignored about the needs and the availability of services for women is still out there, and it still hasn't been fulfilled. And one of the big things is that 86% of women that go to prison are mothers. So we come home facing so many more challenges, unlike men, due to the simple fact that there are no there's very few family matter attorneys. There's very few reunification programs to really bring you back to your children and help you gain custody of your children again. There's so many hoops and ladders that you have to go through with DCFS or the foster care system that no one really talks about. Sometimes it takes women years to get their children back, or sometimes women lose their children completely because they're left out of the process. When they're in prison, they don't even get to go to court for their children. And that's still happening now. And that hasn't been addressed. And the needs for the mandates, unlike some of our male counterparts here, we have to go through very stringent, like credited programs to get our children back, but that they don't even tell you where they're at. Because you'll go to a program in your community like Precious Blood, but then they'll, you know, I'm just giving an example, and then you go to the service place and said, hey, I did this parenting class, and they say, well, it's not accredited, so it didn't count. So them things still exist.
It's a variety of barriers that impacts us all. Renaldo, speaking from your position, as you mentioned, you served 37 years. What was your experience like returning?
Well, I have to be honest, I was quite ecstatic. I was excited to be released, but one of the things that was a barrier for me was identification. You know, for 37 years, once a year, they take you and fingerprint you, and they take your picture and they say, we know who you are. The day of my release, they asked me not to take a COVID test because it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. They asked me, did I want to take an HIV test, right? But then they took a picture of me, fingerprinted me, and they gave me a piece of paper and said, you have to register when you get home as a convicted felon. And so I was like, okay. I didn't understand that it would be so difficult to get some identification. Because of the age that I went to prison, I was 19, but I pretty much had the mental capacity of a 13-year-old. And so I didn't work. I was a functionally illiterate. When I came home, I actually walked out with a bachelor's degree, but I didn't have any identification. And so I was playing the game, to be really honest, because I'm like, okay, it'll happen. Until my boss, who's Jennifer Sobel for the Illinois Prison Project, say, it's taking you too long. What process have you started? And she took me and walked me actually through the process. And I had to get an actual new Social Security card, right? And went through the whole process. And so it's amazing to me that you can be identified within the Department of Correction for X amount of years, but the moment you walk out, you're unidentifiable. And then even though I have to go and register as a convicted murderer, right? When I went to the police station, they say, you don't have any ID. And so you can't register, but it's a violation for you not to register. So that is a problem that existed for me, and it continues to exist. And that's a barrier that is really, really dangerous. And we have to figure out how to address that.
That experience is sad to me every time, and I know you personally, and I know as many others that face similar situations, so we do have to address it. Adolfo, if you can you speak to your experience when you transitioned?
If y'all ever saw that Toyota commercial where they jump in the air and slap their feet,
That was you?
no. I wanted to be, but it was cold, but it was a blessing to have my beautiful fiance waiting for me, my sister and a friend. So coming home was a great thing, but like you all mentioned, it's a lot you got to deal with. The ID. I got pulled over by the police and they like, I told my name, they like, you lying. I said, I am. They said, the person that I sent on this picture is not you. I said, it was the last time I was out. Then they looked at me like, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm serious. They said, you need to get an ID because you get pulled over again, you might not walk away. So, but my main issue is mental health. I did 29 years in prison. And when it was time for me to go home, they just say, good luck. They didn't give me no mental evaluation. And I sitting in prison, I seen a lot of men get out of prison that had mental issues and come back. And then all you see on the news is what they did. They should never let them out early and all this, but they don't speak upon that. They just kick us out and think that I've been gone since I was 14 years old. I don't know nothing about this life out here. You didn't, if it wasn't for my support system and Father Kelly and Precious Blood, JoJo welcoming me here and having a support system, honestly, I don't know what I would be right now. I probably wouldn't have been out because if you don't have no place to go, they revoke your parole and keep you in prison until your parole time over with or until you find a place to stay. So to me, mental health is a #1 issue. Father Kelly used to tell me all the time, you come visit on the phone, get mental health. You need mental health. And I'm like, I don't need no mental health, but now I go once a week because it's needed. I can't sleep because I'm thinking I'm gonna wake back up in prison. You know, I'm going through a lot of things and I'm still trying to figure out. And sometimes I'm like, was I cool in prison? Just being honest. It might shock people, but sometimes I think like that. Was I okay with prison? I ain't had to worry about nothing but commissary. So was I okay? So that's a mental thing that I'm dealing with and I'm trying to get back. But a lot of brothers and sisters need mental evaluations before they get out so they can transition out here better than what I have been transitioning. And it's been hard, but I'm just grateful for the support system that I have.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Oftentimes we use terms as restorative or transformative services or justice. And because for our audience and individually, could each one of you all tell what does transformative or restorative justice look like in the work that you do? Celia, can we start with you?
Sure. For me, it would be doing exactly what Rodolfo's talking about. Really getting to the heart, right? Emotions control thought, that control action. 98%, we have all the data. We've been collecting data for years. 98% of people that go to prison have been a victim of some kind of crime or been a witness to some kind of trauma. Trauma, I don't care what psychologist writes the book, they all say the same thing, will screw you up for the rest of your life and you don't know when you're gonna cope or how you're gonna cope. So I think the need to really address emotional social learning. That's something that I teach and that I harp on, is helping people and grabbing them by their hand and making sure that they have mental health care and support a part of their reentry process, that they have people like us who understand and know how to pivot, the transition home, to talk to just say, hey, I'm here, I understand, and let me show you how this works. Let me show you how to do this. And I think that having the peer support is one of the biggest supports, more than anything, because we can really understand that dark side and that space of unknown and that ugly side that a lot of us don't like to talk about. Like, are we touching walls to make sure we're home, right? That it's not a brick wall, a concrete wall. When we hear keys, or I've had people, like when I first came home, if I'd hear walkie-talkies, like I would have stress would come out. I know I would be triggered. There's a lot of things that trigger people. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that everybody in the world is walking around with some kind of trauma, some kind of pain that has changed them in some kind of way. And until they have that holistic support, and until they have that, therapy, and be able to process these emotions, we're, especially Black and brown people, we're running around with so much unhealed trauma within our DNA that we haven't even, recovered from. And then we're experiencing exacerbated trauma and violence in our communities. And all prisons does, it's what they've ever done, is exacerbate trauma, cause more harm, especially when it comes to women. One of the things that men don't really have to deal with, unlike women, is rape and harassment. There's no one that I'm one of the many faces of prison rape. When I came home, there was no one who understood that kind of trauma. To this day, there's no one that understands, a therapist that understands that kind of trauma. It's something that scars your soul for the rest of your life. And who helps you with this, right? And then you get no justice. So, there's things that a lot of women don't like to talk about, but I will, because you don't heal in isolation, you heal in community. And if we don't bring these things out to light, then they will never be dealt with.
Thank you. Thank you. And you mentioned a few key things: peer support, group support networks. So Renaldo, I want to ask you, what role does collaboration play in the work that you are and your organization do?
It is imperative that we work with every organization that is moving forward to bring awareness. Like specifically, I work in the capacity of sharing our stories, right? Because I'm big on how do you change the dangerous narrative, the one-sided narrative, right?
Mhm.
He's a monster, she's a monster. So what? That person got raped in prison, right? They don't address those things. And so telling our stories and people looking at us and saying, hey, you don't look like a monster. Father Kelly said to me, I don't have to be afraid of people whose story I know. And I love that, because that's my job, is to go tell my story. And I share my story not to be boastful, but to say, I made it through all that hell, through all of that trauma. I'm still holding on. And I'm able to stand up erect because of the support of organizations like Precious Blood Ministry, right? And I could say, man, I have strength and a little back support, right? That's because of the collaboration, right? And they said, y'all say, you said, you know it, because you was here when I came home, right? Because people didn't expect me to walk out of prison. And people have given up on so many people, and people have given up on having hope. And so the collaboration of bringing hope to people, right? Hope comes through collaboration. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when it comes, it's like a tree of life. And so I love collaborating. I love the importance of saying to people, I need your help, because I can't do it alone. We can't win trying to do this alone.
Thank you. I agree with that. And also, as you said, these are individual stories, but policy play a role in what happens to many people. So Marlon, the Fully Free campaign, can you explain that a little bit and talk about what role it plays in policy?
No, absolutely. So, and it sort of ties into the question that you asked Celia around, like, what does restorative look like in this work? And when we think about policy and we think about like the war on drugs, or really the war on poor folks, or war on poverty, there were a lot of policies that were created that really sort of like helped spearhead mass incarceration. And so what the Fully Freed campaign, the aim or one of the goals is to really go back and one, acknowledge the harm that was done through policy, but then also introduce policy that restores the rights of individuals who have been incarcerated and have finished their sentence. It's also a platform for us because if you look at in a lot of different spaces in this work, there are a few spaces that are actually led by directly impacted individuals. And so this campaign is a voice for us. There are individuals who I know, if you look at my Facebook timeline, you would see a completely different narrative than what you see on the news. Because of all of the folks that I've met in this work that have been incarcerated, I've met people who are pastors, business owners that are driving trucks that few people know about. And so this is a campaign that wants to amplify the whole story. As Renaldo said, if we all continue to tell our stories, then people will have a broader perspective. And then ultimately that could lead to us developing policy that will remove these barriers and create opportunities for people and not hurdles. And so that is one of the goals of the Fully Free campaign, is to one, acknowledge the harm that was done and also be able to show through policy. Right now, there's a law in the books that says that if you are a convicted felon, you can't be the administrator or executor over your family member's estate. And we know with COVID, with things being virtual, an example would be my father passed away in March, next to kin. But because I have I'm a convicted felon, I couldn't be the administrator over his will. And so we want to restore the rights of individuals who have finished doing their time so that they can move forward in life.
So to speak to that, sure, we're all familiar with permanent punishment. We experience it daily. Can you give some examples of what that is?
What a permanent punishment is?
Yeah.
A permanent punishment is something when we were all sentenced, we were given a number or months of what we had to serve, including probation, parole, and what the terms were. But once that's completed, there's still a prison after the prison, because there are over 100 and something laws that create sort of like this prison after the prison that says we can't do this or you can't do this. And so a permanent punishment is a web of laws that continue to follow you even after your like time period with the carceral system is over. It follows you forever.
So speaking of something that follows you, Adolfo, can you speak to success? Because you mentioned it earlier when you was talking about how you feel successful. Can you speak to why you are successful and so many others may not be who are returning home from prison?
Because of the support system I have and want something better, not just for myself, but for my community. You know, I know a lot of people speak on adult. I like to speak on the juvenile system because, like she mentioned, like the women, it's a lot of things goes on in the women prison that we don't know about until it's told. And a lot of people don't want to tell it because they probably feel ashamed, but they have no reason to feel ashamed about it. Like when I was in juvenile prison, kids used to sell their body to eat because they didn't have the one to send them money, or DCFS just cut them off. They've been raped. So by me seeing them things and by me being in the position I am now with the kids, I feel successful by being able to give them that before they have to go through it and let them know, man, this is real. So I feel my success come through the people I mentor, you know what I'm saying? And seeing them smiling, seeing them, when we come through the door, they can't wait to see us, like that's my success, because I said I was gonna do something and I'm doing it. And not only that, like when I was younger, DCFS used to take me places and bring me back. I told DCFS, like, man, I don't even want to be with y'all no more. Because y'all take me to heaven and bring me back to hell, I might as well stay in hell because y'all only come around a certain amount of time. But here, it's a constant thing. You know what I'm saying? They call us, we picking up. If it's in our will to do it, we'll do it. So that make me, that's a part of my success, like seeing the kids smile and just having a strong support system make me who I am. Without that, I'd have synced it. Brothers and sisters return back to the same thing they left because they don't have a strong support system. So my success is when I talk to you, Father Kelly, whoever at Precious Blood, and when I go home to my family. That's who made me who I am today. That's how I feel successful by pushing out that energy.
So what we've heard, a common theme in a lot of these conversations is the failure of the systems that we've been placed in, whether it's the IDOC, whether it's the juvenile detention centers, whether it's the DCFS, the different centers that we engage that has been failing us. So can I go around and ask everyone, what should we keep in mind when we think about applying restorative justice or a transformational lens to the work we do?
I would say that prevention is the key to saving humanity. You know, healthy people create healthy lifestyles, which turns into a healthy community. If we really wanted to make the biggest impact in reducing violence, we would make it a priority. State and government and every agency in the world would make it a priority to serve those that have been harmed the most, meaning creating a real holistic approach. It only costs $10,000 to see a really good psychologist or, you know, social worker to help you go through counseling. It costs $151,000 for taxpayers' money to send people back, but they don't want to spend $10,000 in helping somebody heal and giving them the proper supports that they need to become healthy adults that live healthy lifestyles, that have, you know, healthy intentions for their community. I believe serving this group would be the best thing for humanity. You know, when we know that prison doesn't work, punishing people doesn't work, condemning us and our families to a lifetime of barriers, it helps no one.
Did anyone else want to speak to that?
What you said, like, why would they spend 100,000? They could spend 10 because they spend 100,000 to send us to prison, and then they're making 200,000 by making us work in their industries.
Yeah.
So people don't know that. Like, if you working in the Illinois Department of Correction, you make, well, I was making $29 a week, but the work, I mean, $29 a month. So I was making $29 a month. They was making probably a couple $100,000 off just me, my work alone. So that's why they're 100,000 to 300,000. So that's the thing. But a lot of people don't know that because they only shine a light on what we do wrong, or what's the system that somebody assault the police in the prison, the joint on lockdown for assaulting the police. But they didn't say the assault was a guy dropped his tray. I got an assault ticket for dropping my tray on the floor and hit the police feet. They gave me 6 months in segregation for that. But they only want to show the hard stuff that we do. So
The violence.
that $100,000, they cool with that.
So I would like to take this time also because I believe this should be an interactive discussion. And I would like to invite the audience, if you feel free, if something has piqued your interest, please utilize the chat to write any questions. We want to answer these questions. And while we have these experts here, I consider experts my friends, my family, because this is what support looks like. And I'm glad to be surrounded by you all. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask this panel, please feel free to do so now. While they're thinking on questions to ask, I would like to just throw a question up in the air. If we could, thinking about time, being conscious of time, if you had an elevator pitch, what is something you would like the audience to take away today?
I want everybody to know that everybody can do something. You can go out and you can support, you know, any organization that's on the ground doing the work. If you don't want to do the work, you can support them, you can volunteer, you can donate to their campaigns, you can sign up to make phone calls to our state and local representatives. We've been pushing since the beginning of time to create policies that really, really justify and really create a humanity that we all want to live in. And I think that if you there's something on this panel or that you see in your community that, you know, you see as a problem, you know, there's a solution to every problem, and you could be that person. It doesn't take much, you know, to want to give. You just got to give from your heart.
Thank you. We have a question from Bev too. Bev wants to know, and we can go around starting with Adolfo, what organizations are you representing on this panel today?
Precious Blood Ministries, Reconciliation, and each and every one of us, our organizations. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we all family, and until we come together as one, things gonna continue to be the same. So I represent Precious Blood and whatever they represent.
Amen. I love it.
What, yeah, Renaldo?
Well, I actually represent the Illinois Prison Project, but I would like to say really, really quickly, when you asked the question about what could you do, instead of that stop up today, like how about that donation to Precious Blood Ministry? Because they provide beds, they provide opportunities, they provide food. And so we don't have to wonder about what you can do. Everybody can do something, you know? And so I'm a big advocate for cars don't move without gas. This movement will not move without cash. And so I don't struggle with asking for help. And I think it's important that people understand that the reason we're able to sit up here is because someone was willing to care. And this organization is worth it. Yeah.
Celia.
So I am the CEO and founder of Giving Others Dreams, G.O.D. I represent that, and I represent Just Leadership USA, the Fully Free campaign, Precious Blood. I'm here to support any of the organizations that are helping our people move forward and create policy changes that really represents the world that we live in today.
Yep, I represent Heartland Alliance and the Fully Free campaign, but also I represent everybody here on this panel and also individuals and organizations across the state. I've had the privilege of traveling around Illinois, and this is not just a Chicago problem. This is a statewide problem. And I would also just say quickly to the last question, a part of restorative justice is building community. And within building community, that means making investments in community. And so when you invest in communities, you reap a different harvest versus what we've seen is that the west and the south side of Chicago in certain neighborhoods have looked the way that it looks from when I was a little kid, a long time ago. And so for me to come home 10 years later after incarceration, and now I've been home for almost 9, and for certain neighborhoods to look the way they look is a shame. And so I think we have to do a better job of investing in communities so that we can cultivate the talent that lies in these communities. All of us could have been in a different scenario where we're all leaders and could have been leading something else. But now we're leading causes as directly impacted individuals because there was a lack of investment.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience. The question is it punishment that doesn't work or just punishment that isn't rehabilitative?
I would say punishment doesn't work, and somebody's crime shouldn't be tied to their character. No one knows what caused the story behind what brought someone to make those choices at that time. So I think that, punishment, violence, you can't treat violence with violence. All you're going to do is produce more violence. And if that's the outcome that you want, then punishment is what you're seeking. But if you're seeking to restore people, restore humanity, and build a better tomorrow and a better future, then when we invest in people, we create real opportunities. We create equity in communities that have been ignored for many years. I live in the South Chicago neighborhood. It's the same. It's been, I would say it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. I live in a neighborhood where there's structural violence that nobody wants to talk about, that's in plain sight. I do, because this is what my kids see, and I don't want to leave my neighborhood for them to feel like they're in a supported neighborhood. I want them to live in their own neighborhood, and I want their neighborhood to be supported, to make them the leaders that they are, to live within where they feel culturally, accepted for who they are and the color of their skin. And we don't do that. When we think about prison, since the beginning of time, we only want to punish people, but that's not going to do anything for humanity or for the next person. If we really listen to victims of crimes and survivors of crime, the one thing we all ask for is that we don't want whatever happened to us to never happen again to anybody. So that means that we need to get to the root cause, and we need to rehabilitate that person and find out what caused that harm in that person and cause that person to create hard and make the choices that sometimes people were forced to make.
Can I say really, really quickly, like I spent 13 years on death row. and I watched 12 executions. And not one of those brothers said, if I would have known this was the punishment, I would have made a different decision. So I'm convinced that punishment does not fix or deter crime. What I've learned is that love, right, transform hearts and transform minds. And so I'm a believer in the gospel when it says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you might prove what is good and acceptable will of God. And so I believe in second chances. I believe that there's no one is their worst act. You know, I think people should be held responsible and accountable. But I think that just simply to say punish, 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 right, is just wrong. And I think only love will prevail at the end of the day.
Amen.
Perfect love casts away all fear. And I know when I came here to Precious Blood Ministry, I felt the love. And so I can't say it enough. Like if you want to get some love on you, then come on over here. Yeah.
So thank you, Renaldo, because when you think about punishment, when you think about someone being harmed and they're looking for a way to share that pain they have, I think of the quote that heal people heal people. And one thing I think about is being privileged to be in you all's company, as I've been made aware that as many more people like you, if given an opportunity, if invested in, can sit here and we can have whole communities of people fighting for the same thing. So I believe if we can take the time to push this message to as many as people as possible so people can learn what can happen, because you are a manifestation of mercy. He spoke to sitting on death row, going from sitting on death row to now sitting in spaces where you give a lot of your time, or the majority of your time, to prevent someone else's family from hurting. I appreciate that. I want to say to all you all, I'm aware, if only for this short time, the work that you're doing, we appreciate you. I represent Precious Blood because we talk about you all the time. We're glad you are doing the work that you're doing. Speaking to our next question from the audience, and I believe it's probably someone of our very own, but she wants to know, what dreams do you have for yourselves? What is your hope? Let's start with Adolfo and come around.
He didn't
Touch on the
finish the other
restorative
question.
justice.
Oh, I'm
he didn't-
sorry.
I'm like, he didn't answer it.
I didn't know what restorative justice was until Father Kelly was coming down there. Then I took a restorative justice class. And restorative justice is like building relationships. You know, like you said, if I know your story, then it's like we have something in common now. Sitting in prison, guys used to be going at each other out here, kill each other. But then when they go to prison, they forced to have a conversation. And once they have a conversation, they get to understand, like, man, we're in the same boat. They become the best of friends. They was out here trying to kill each other, but coming to prison, becoming the best of friends. So restorative justice to me is like just having that conversation. Go to your neighbor, have a conversation, build that relationship, go to the next neighbor. That's how the community become better, because it happens every day. We didn't know what it was in prison, but that's where it begins, is having a conversation with your cellie, have a conversation with your neighbor, even sometimes having a conversation with the correctional officer. It begins a relationship. They start looking at you different. I used to be wild in prison, but for some reason, I ain't gonna say for some reason, because they saw in me that what I didn't see in myself. And they be like, man, just calm down, Dave. Even the correctional, calm down. And that alone helped me see me. Somebody believing in me and loving me and being like, man, you good, just chill out. Taking the time out to talk to me. Like we always, when I'm out thinking, JoJo be the first one, let me holler at you. And that just encouraged me to like, man, I got him, I got her. But it's all about building relationships within our community. Well, if you build a relationship in the community, we'll go beyond. We wouldn't have to wait till police kill somebody to send it up. We're gonna send it up just because it's the right thing to do at the right time for the right reason. Not send it up and doing nothing bad, but like we're gonna make a stand.
Activate the community is what you're
Right.
referring to when you say send it up. We have
My
different
dream
codes of
is-
speech.
Yeah, and my dream is, for me personally, it's like to see the young men I mentor, man. 2 of them already went to college. They back, but they going back. But just to see them become everything that they vision they could be. And then I know my old teacher, may she rest in peace, Dr. Burroughs, Margaret Burroughs, she used to be my creative writing teacher. And she say, your legacy, think about what you're gonna leave behind. And that's what I think about every day. When I talk to the young man, if I don't wake up in the morning, I know I left something behind. So when they achieve, that's my dream, just to see them achieve and do great things with their youth that I wasn't able to do. You know what I'm saying? So that's my dream, just to have our kids to be able to be kids again, to have block parties, to run, play jumping, play jacks on the corner. You know, that's my dream for my community, to be able to do them things.
Ronaldo?
Yeah, my dream is a little more selfish, because I want to be a homeowner. You know, I want to own my own home, and I want to sit in my own backyard. And I think about that. And my hope is someone hand me the keys, you know? And so it's really that simple. Like, I think you have to be whole in order to help others see what being whole looks like, you know? And I think too many of us have lost the desire and the ability to even dream. And so it may seem funny to others, but for me, after serving 37 years straight, right, I want to sit on my own back porch. Yeah.
So before I pass to Cece, I want to speak to something. And I call her Cece because that's a term of endearment. That's her nickname.
It's my initials.
Yeah, I respect who she is and I respect the work she does, but I'm kind of personal. But I want to speak to something because Renaldo talked about home ownership. And if you would take the time to invest or support Precious Blood actually does that work. We try to invest in the community. We try to move to support people, returning citizens and people in the community go from transitional housing to permanent housing, become their own home owners. This is a program that we're starting this year. It takes work. It takes a lot of work. And we're thankful for this opportunity, but we need your support to continue this work because that's the American dream, home ownership. I share that same dream as Renaldo, and I know many more do. And when you have ownership, you have an invested interest in the community. So now you become more protective of your community. And this is one way to build up the community. So when you think about what can prevent crime, that is one answer.
So for me, my hope would be that we actually acknowledge all of the pain and the poverty and the violence that exists, that it was created by a system that was created the way it was created to have people suffer, people of color, and to realize that the laws that were created many, many moons ago don't represent the people that we are in this diverse world anymore. You know, we have to stop pivoting and amending the laws and just rip them up and start a whole new Bill of Rights and Constitution to really represent who we are as people, you know, melting pots, right? And actually start having something that they never had. Like in every high school and grammar school, you know, there's a mandated 1970 health, you know, video about your sexuality, but there's never been anything about conflict resolution, dealing with mental health issues, you know, talking to people, having support, dealing with the heart, dealing with what you're facing every day, how to process emotions. Like, when is there going to be a meditation class? When is there a conflict resolution mandated video that I got to watch? You know, still don't exist because violence feeds every system in the world, all the way down from the Johnson & Johnson Band-Aid guy to the social worker, right? Violence feeds so many systems that nobody really wants to acknowledge. So, and until we can start living in a world that's really holistic and really cares about each other and treats each other like brothers and sisters and realizes that even Jesus had strangers help him carry the cross, that we're tribal people. We need each other and we need to support each other and love each other and give each other opportunities and understand that we are not each other's enemies, nor are we each other's, you know, what do you call it? I can't even think of the term, but you know, when we go up against each other, competition, you know, we're not. Everybody was born for a great purpose and everybody has their own talents. And usually when you find them, it's to serve other people or to solve a problem. So I think that for me, my hope is to really, really just spread love and really have a hope of a real holistic universe. for me, I want to live till I'm at least 101. And, you know, I want to enjoy my kids, my great grandkids, and I want to build something that my kids and all my children and great grandchildren and my community is proud of. I want them to say that regardless of what I've been through or what I was, because I was growing and I was transforming. And, you know, I feel like we're 75% water. Water is one of the most powerful elements of the earth. And that means we're always in transformation. We're never in the same space twice, and we have the ability to become whoever we want.
Yeah, I would say two things. One is more of an internal thing for me, and that's about just being whole. I've been through a lot, just like with deaths. I mean, I could go through the list of things that I've been through. And so I think for me, like just getting to a place of wholeness is something that I dream about. And the reason why is because the more and more I learn about myself, the better like I am as a father. I feel like I missed the opportunity because I was gone, not just the 10 years that I was incarcerated, because I was going in and out the system, that my two oldest kids, which are 25, 24, well, and 21, I missed the opportunity with them. And now I have some like younger kids that I have an opportunity to raise and be a better father. So for me, it's about just reaching wholeness. And then externally, I would say, I want to contribute to a world where we all have a voice in what impacts us, but also that in this world, our quality of life is different than what we grew up with. Meaning we all own homes and we have nice cars, and just our quality of life is different. And I want to contribute to that. I had the honor of purchasing a home a year ago. And right now, that is one of the things that's on the top of my list that I'm proud of. Like, I'm a homeowner. And to your point, what me and my wife do, we went out, we knock on everybody's door and introduced ourselves. We invite them over for that because we believe in the community. We believe in relationships. So I'm practicing like saying like, no, even if you don't want to get to know me, you're going to get to know me. Because if I live in this neighborhood, like you're going to know who I am and I'm going to know who you are. So that way we can build a community right where I live now. But those are the things that I hope for and dream for.
Okay, man, now can y'all see why I'm so proud to call these people my family? Man, I feel privileged right now. We have another question from the audience, and they asked the question is, what do Pbmr and other community orgs do to help returning citizens transition successfully? Can we?
You all can answer that. All the precious blood people here. Yeah. And I know a lot about what you guys do too.
Well, we have a lot of programs here at Precious Blood. We have the re-entry home. We have, when I got out, I ain't know how to drive real good, but I was taking everybody to get their ID. I was the ID man. So if somebody ain't doing it, JoJo Show know how to call you and tell you somebody do it. But that's just love. If he can't do it, he'll make sure somebody else do it. If I can't do it, we always gonna make sure somebody else there to help that person get his ID, go to a job. We have people here that help you get a job. We have a GED program, a high school diploma program. We have music class, we have arts, we have ceramics. We have other organizations that's also a part of the Precious Blood family that if we can't do it, best believe we're gonna put you in the right direction to get the help you need. So I'm very grateful. Even when I went to speak at a PRB board the other day, they shocked me. They know about Father Kelly and Father Danny. So it's good to know that people like that that's have the power to let someone come home, know that Precious Blood Ministries and Reconciliation is a great place for someone to come to. So hearing that, it was grateful.
So to speak to that, what we do is we start beginning. We build from a relationship and build out to all other programming. We believe in pre-release services. That's before we connect with people while incarcerated. We believe connection should start from the point of contact with the criminal justice system. So, and oftentimes they do because they come from our communities. We stay connected with it. Our service is not transactional. We don't just deliver one service and then no longer talk to you, but it's transformational, and we try try to continue to walk with you throughout your journey. We offer, like he said, workforce development. We offer accompaniment to engage different systems. We offer support to go on job interviews as far as providing clothing and transportation and going with you and walking through that process. We offer a lot of other services, but I want to take this opportunity to allow the rest of the panel to speak about what it is their organization do for reentry.
So for me, I take pride in what we call, my organization provides what's called We Win Welcome Home Care Packages for women. And we provide immediate support for the first 30 to 60 days when they are released. And we make sure that we do a barriers assessment. We give them $100 in cash, and they get about $700 when they come home to help them with clothing, interview ready clothes, purses, hygiene products, not just for them, but they're for their families. People have to understand that a whole family is impacted. So we serve the entire family food and make sure they get all the direct services, the support. They never go nowhere. My phone number's been the same for the last 20 years. And I continue to support them, mentor them in any way that they need, and connect them to whatever services that they need.
I'm sorry if it seems rushed. Do you want to speak to something briefly?
Well, yeah, he actually is telling the truth because he drove me to get my identification, scared me, to be clear, right? But yeah, I didn't know he didn't know how to drive. But I love what the organization that I work for, the Illinois Prison Project. We do direct representation, but we plug people into organizations like Precious Blood Ministry. And so it's important that all the different components of different organizations come together. So reentry is not simply the services, but also the connections. And we help to get people to the services that you provide. So I'm quite proud of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be quick. So as far as the Fully Free campaign, we offer individuals that are directly impacted the skills to be the advocates for their own liberation as we dismantle this prison after the prison.
Thank you. We want to welcome Father Kelly back so he can close us out. We're thankful for your time with us this evening. And I'm
honored to be here with all of you guys. You guys are awesome, every single one of you.
Yes, I'm definitely honored. We appreciate it and hope you continue to join us for the next upcoming series.
So I want to give a lot of thanks to this panel for sharing a bit about themselves and really stimulating this conversation. And I know probably stimulating conversations in your own homes, and for the many challenges and ways in which we can get involved. I hope you, like me, found different things as they were talking among themselves and talking with us on ways we can really get involved. So that was great. Tonight, we'd like to also take some action. So it's not just about conversation, about, every great thing begins with a conversation, and those conversations spur us into some sort of action. And so on your screen, you should find 3 actions that you can take. First is just to continue this conversation with us, to give us a call. We'd love to have you come here to further the conversation, either individually or as a small group where we can really talk about and talk with each other, those of the panel members here and others, about what we can do together. And so contact us, and I think you have that contact information to set up a visit. And that could be in person, or really it can be digital with this new age of digital visiting. The second action is we want to really start to bring things into the prisons. You heard some of the stories about how hard it is to be in prison if you don't have the support of a family. So we're really collecting things that we can bring into the Illinois prisons. We're bringing toothbrushes, clean bottled water. I heard stories the other day about the water that comes out of the sinks in the Illinois prisons and how it's not clear. And small bars of soap, things like that, that we will then take. You can bring them here and we'll take them into the Illinois prisons. And then lastly, and you heard this, make a donation to Pbmr to help us with the support of really reaching out further so that we can really encourage people who are coming out of prison and even meet them before they come out. You asked one of the things about Pbmr, and one of the things I'm most proud about is a young man came after spending decades in prison, and he came here, and at the end of a conversation, He says, you know what? This place has good vibes. And to me, all the evaluation processes in the world couldn't have done more than that one person saying, you know, Pbmr has good vibes. And the reason it has good vibes is not because of me, but because of people like this, people that are on the panel who can connect in a real way. And Pbmr offers a community to folks who are coming home from prison.
Amen.
So I thank you very much. God bless. Have a great night. Thanks for spending it with us.
Are we still?